wanted to take some time out for that. So I've been studying emotionally healthy discipleship now for almost 10 years, or a little over 10 years at this point. And basically, but actively following and working in the ministry for the last 5 years as a table leader. And got the opportunity to even teach the course with Pete twice. And he took me on as a mentor for a few months. And I got a chance to go through most of all of the skills and things behind closed doors with him and go a little deeper on things. And so I really consider myself like a disciple of the movement, and it's something that has really changed my life. So it's really been awesome. For the first time, I can say this, for the first time in my Christian life, I've been able to put it together. I've been able to really click on all cylinders and get going. Now, everything is not perfect, but I'm the healthiest I've ever been, and I owe it to this stuff as well as to interviewing as well, and to being involved with Rick and Pam at the end. These two programs really address these two, like a lot of the core cracks that I have in my walk with Christ. But I had to go a lot deeper than I've ever really went before. A lot deeper. Joyce Meyer says this very often. She references Jesus' statement, go into the deep and get ready for a haul. And how Jesus brought his disciples and said, let's go out into the deep, drop the nets, and get ready for something. And so when we go deeper, there's always going to be a greater level of freedom that's going to come from that. And so real quick, going to just give a short background and introduction for people who maybe haven't taken the course in a while, and just run you through some brief things. So how did emotionally healthy discipleship really come about? Well, what happened was in 1987, Pete started a church here in Queens, and basically, really quickly, the church really grew to about 400 within a very short time. And as well as they had a Spanish congregation alongside of the English congregation. What happened is the church had a split, and basically the whole Spanish congregation left New Life without even saying a word. And so Pete, who really discipled these people, really lived with them, was just left devastated. It just spun him into a deep depression. And he found himself actually cursing out the pastor of the Spanish congregation in his car, actually cursing him. And so he found himself being like the cursing pastor. And he was deeply upset. And at times really didn't even want to become a Christian anymore. He said, I'm kind of done with this, but he's a pastor, so he had no choice but to keep going on. Then shortly after this, Jerry basically tells him, Pete, your leadership stinks, I'm leaving the church. Okay? And that's kind of a problem when your wife gets up and leaves the church. And so what happened is, obviously he gets up and goes to the elder board and goes, yeah, we have a problem here. And they were smart enough to get them help right away and send them to a counseling center, an intensive counseling center where they're able to go for a few days and get therapy throughout the day. And basically, it was in that counseling session that EHS started. And basically, because the counselor made them fully listen to each other. And so that is the moment that Pete says that it started with incarnational listening in that counseling session, where he was really able to see Jerry for the first time as a person, and to really acknowledge her. Pete discovered the link between emotional health and spiritually maturity. This statement right here is the MO of emotionally healthy discipleship. That it is not possible to be spiritually mature while remaining emotionally immature. So just a little brief round about myself. I came to the Lord at 12. I grew up in a Christian home, but made my own decision. And really got serious with the Lord around 20. And I'm led in a church on Long Island with my brother-in-law. And then eventually I become a youth pastor. And then I'm a part-time seminary student. And I'm leading revival meetings at several colleges in the New York area. And basically, but deep down beneath all of it was like I knew something was really off. I had my Pete moment just like he did, where I was like, God, something is fundamentally wrong with my discipleship. Something is fundamentally wrong with me. Now, I put on a good face and just kept going, but I can identify really with Pete because I went through the same thing as he did. And so basically in 2008, I said, you know what, maybe if I just go to seminary full time and just plow. And so I made a decision and just went across the country, packed anything that I had in my car and just left, and to try to piece it together. I get there, 1,500 miles away, and the professor goes, you know, you don't have to come to class today, just go get your books, I'll see you tomorrow. So we go to the bookstore, and the first books I get were Emotionally Healthy Spirituality and the workbook. I was P.O.'d. I was like, I came 1,500 miles, and to have these books, these are my parents' pastors. What is God thinking? Okay? I wanted to start getting into metaphysical things, systematic theology. I did not want emotionally healthy spirituality. And the professor said, actually, read the book and finish it in 2 days and come back to class. So I'm like, wow. So I finished the book, and it was then that something went off. I didn't really get it until 2010, where I was sitting on the beach again. I read it cover to cover, and I said, crap, this is it. This is the most missing link. I had been looking for 20 years. When I realized at 20 that something was wrong, I came to Christ, but there was something more that I hadn't experienced yet. And I basically would read I would find books. I would spend sometimes as a youth pastor my whole entire salary just in the Christian bookstore. And I dropped $300-400 on books and go through them, and I would listen to tapes and sermons and just to try to fill the gaps. But it was really EHS that basically was able to fill that for me. It was a powerful thing, and it went off. And for me, in studying church history and many things, it might be, now we're so close to it that I think to some degree, familiarity breeds contempt, and you think, well, it comes from our church. This might be one of the greatest messages, even in all of church history, period. Okay, I think that's how huge this is. So we're going to just encourage you to really, if some of you have taken the assessment before, you can go on the website, and basically there's an assessment there for you. It's free. It takes 15 minutes. And what I encourage you to do, even if you've taken it before, take it again. And then as well as take it after the cohort, just to gauge where you're at. Maybe you grew a little bit and kind of went up, but I encourage you to take that, and it will just let you know, am I an emotional infant, adolescent, or adult? Okay? So yeah, go ahead and do that. So what is emotionally healthy discipleship, formerly known as EHS? So just to give a brief introduction for those who may not take in the class in a while. So emotionally healthy discipleship is the joining of emotional health and contemplative spirituality. The emotional health component is consisted of education on emotional health, which includes skills and tools. This is Pete, what he considers in the book, his second conversion. The first, when he comes to the Lord in college. This second conversion happens with this revelation in the counseling office about emotional health. Right? So the idea here, then, the second component is the contemplative component, is based on the monastic movement in church history. This would be Pete's third conversion, as he explained it, when he took a sabbatical in 2007, and basically him and Jerry had went to various monasteries. Just the idea of slowing down and just being with God. It's going to include solitude, silence, scripture meditation, and prayer. These are all things that you're going to cover in Richard Foster's book. And you're going to cover this stuff, and it's mind-blowing. I remember when the first time I opened up that book, I shared the last time, Celebration and Discipline. That book can change your life radically, because there's so many good things in there. But the idea, what was the biggest thing for me is I came from a sister church of Brooklyn Tabernacle. Now, Brooklyn Tabernacle is known for praying, okay? Their senior pastor wrote about 3 or 4 books, some of the best books on prayer, Fresh Wind, Fresh Fire, and they knew how to pray. So as a 20-year-old, I would shock people because I would get to speak at different places and they would be like, wow. You know what I mean? Like, I knew how to pray. But the truth was, really, I was having a one-way conversation. I was just presenting all my requests to God, and it was one way. It wasn't until EHD where I was like, this is a two-way conversation. I need to make room for listening. I need to be still. God is not my personal assistant. He's not here to do my will. I'm not bossing him around. I'm following him. And so that was the most powerful thing for me. And I'm all for powerful prayer. Powerful and effective prayer. Like it says in James 5. But at the same time, man, I spend far more time in silence and listening to what God would have to say. That's the third part of Pete's conversion that you can find in the book, the contemplative spirituality. I hear a lot of times, oh God, that's really Catholic. You guys are like blowing it in New Life Church over there. Everybody's going to become Catholic. I'm like, really slow down, okay? We're just basically, we're using some things out of the movement, such as silence and meditation. Nobody is really becoming Catholic, okay? Okay, but we're reaching into church history a little deeper. And I'll tell you one thing, man. It's just been phenomenal to have that two-way relationship with God. Where it's just not this one-way thing where I'm just, like I'm approaching God like Santa Claus or something like that, and I'm approaching him to love. So often that's the hardest part of the class. I've been teaching this now for 5 years in small groups, and basically it is so challenging to get the people that are at my table to practice the silence. It's so challenged to get them to do the devotionals. I have people that sat at my table that didn't even do one of the devotionals all through the class, and this is me encouraging them. Okay? So the idea of personal time with God is really, when you get to see this, you're almost blown away that people aren't spending time with God. They're not spending devotional time. But without the contemplative part of EHD, it is not EHD at all. And I try to tell that to the people I'm sitting in my class. I just want to check off all the boxes. I took the class. If you are not slowing down, if you are not embracing silence, if you are not just sitting in the love of God without presenting him your request, and I present my request to God all the time, but I usually spend a lot of time just being with him. So real quick, and if I didn't have a minute of silence, this wouldn't be EHD. And everything that I taught in every class that we did a moment of silence. So what I encourage you to do is just start with a word such as Abba, Jesus, Dad, whatever you feel comfortable with. I know John Thomas uses the word Papa, and I was like, ooh, yeah, I don't know, I can't use that word. That's good for you, but and there's nothing wrong with that. It came from the book Shack, but for me, it's Abba. But whatever word you do, something to just stop the train of thoughts, and if your mind wanders off, you just say, Abba, Dad, Abba, Jesus. And just get yourself ready to receive God's love. What I do, my favorite thing is to use Rembrandt's painting of the prodigal son, where the father is standing over the son and putting his blood. I just picture myself with God just standing over me and just proclaiming his love. So I'm just going to set a timer. If we can just have a minute of silence. And begin. Okay, so just a little bit more review, and then we're going to jump into some of the chapter here today. Spend more of the time just going over things and less on the chapter to just give everybody a snapshot view of EHD. So the class in this church is a core part of spiritual formation and membership. And part one of the course deals with our relationship with ourselves and to God. So it's going upward, okay? Part two of the course, Mostly Healthy Relationship, is dealing with our relationship to others going this way, okay? And so a question that should be asked for any teacher teaching is, where is this in Scripture? I'm glad you asked. Matthew 22 and verses 35 to 40, one of the experts in the law said, which is the greatest of all the commandments? And Jesus simply replies, it's to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, mind, and soul, and to love others. And so that's simply the model of EHS, the main scripture that it focuses on. To love God with our whole heart, to get in touch with ourselves, to know ourselves that we know God, as well as to love others, and to love others well. So the logo for EHD is the iceberg, and this is so appropriate. It's also the logo for our church at New Life. And what's great about the iceberg is that we have the top 10% up here, which is the visible part of the iceberg that you can see. But the 90% of it remains under the surface. Okay? Now we're all inner healing people here, so most of us are a little bit deeper. But even contemporary spirituality, basically, when Pete started really studying it, basically still really only got about another 10% of the iceberg. A large majority of this, and Pete realized after running a church for several years, remained untouched by Jesus. There were large areas of his life that were untouched. Here's a great quote from the book. The reality was that my discipleship and spirituality had not touched a number of deep internal wounds, sin patterns, especially those ugly ones that emerge behind closed doors, at our home, during trials, disagreements, conflicts, and setbacks. I was stuck at an immature level of spiritual and emotional development. And so according to a lot of the Gallup polls, and even Barna research, is that basically they're finding that to a large degree, Christians don't act much differently than non-Christians at all. It's almost strikingly, it's shocking that divorce rates are the same. That domestic violence rates are the same in Christian households. That white evangelicals in particular get very riled up when a neighbor moves in that's of another race. And the list goes on and on. Cohabitation has found its way to be an acceptable part of the church. And you just wonder when you think of this iceberg, how the contemporary spirituality is not necessarily going into the deep to fit the full part of the iceberg. You know, Rich did this, used the iceberg recently for a lot of social injustice issues, and there's so many things deeper that hold those things in. So I'm leading a table, and so we open up, and I got somebody that was like, and this is what they said. I have been a member of New Life for several years. I have been in the choir for a few years. I love the Lord. But I'm beginning to realize that if I'm really honest with myself, my life outside the church, I really don't live like a Christian at all. Think about that, okay? This guy has more, he's in 2 services every Sunday. He's been doing this for several years, and we're teaching the class, and the light bulb goes off. And of course, I'm not naming anyone, and I asked him if I could use his straw. And he basically says, man, I'm in the choir. And now that you're putting a mirror up to me, I realize that I'm not a Christian at work. I'm not a Christian in my marriage. And I'm sitting there saying, wow, this is somebody that's made more of a commitment than the average person would. The light bulb went off for him. So real quick, some of the important parts of EHS is to know yourself that you may know God. Growing up, this was not even a concept, okay? The self should die, the self should be starved. I remember the pews that used to have those drop-down things so you could sit on your knees and repent that what a sinner you was. You did not want to know yourself. Well, it turns out God's putting some really good things inside of ourselves that don't. The whole part of us does not need to be crucified. We look at the power of the past over our lives. How he's going to talk about that. We're going to go through a genogram. For those that have already been through a genogram, we're going to go deeper with the genogram. I've been working on my genogram for 3 years, and I'm still filling it in. And I'll give you an example. I'm still filling it in. I'm still finding things. Powerful stuff. We're thinking of the past over people's lives. Our journey through the wall. If Pete doesn't hit the wall, and Jerry doesn't basically, and I call her the founder of the movement, because if she doesn't say, enough with this charade, I'm not doing this any longer, we're not here right now. So she's one of my heroes, and so basically, but they hit this wall. The church hits a wall, Pete hits a wall, and the wall is a place where you're going to realize that you're not in control, you're not in charge, you're not running the show. God is in control, God is running the show, and he's going to have to deal with us at times to rearrange things and get some things out of us that would not come out any other way by kind of somewhat arranging circumstances that aren't pleasant for us. This is not taught in the church anymore. We are talking about blessings and becoming millionaires and all this stuff. We are not preaching the dark night of the soul, but God uses that.